That's a weird picture. I have a family. I mean, not a family guy. That family from Texas. With the Western guys that works on a farm and all that, and I forgot the name of it. Anyway, it was the Ninja Turtles dressed up as those characters, and that was the opening skit. I'm like, that's not kind of how I want to open up to. Anyway, um, this is a show that's impacted us for a long time, or me, or I'll be rude and say us.
Only you.
I'll
Only
be rude
you.
and say us.
No one else. You own it.
Yeah, we've loved the Ninja Turtles for generation upon generation upon generation up to 2010s.
We're only one generation.
Come on, there's been like three
We're
generations.
Yeah, but we only own one generation. There have been other generations after us.
We
But
don't own
like
those
we are
generations,
Yeah,
but we have
exactly.
loved them throughout those generations.
Yeah, okay, sure,
Um,
that makes sense.
however, it's let's start with the 80s because that's what we're gonna talk about for now. We're gonna talk about the goods, the bads, the uglies, and everything in between. Hopefully, we can cover everything. If you have any questions, feel free to bring up your own.
Did you say the topic?
Yeah, I said Ninja Turtles of the 80s.
Oh,
I
okay.
said we're only gonna talk about the 80s.
Okay.
Okay. What came first to you? The game or the media, which is the movie or the cartoons? What came first, or the comic book for that matter? What came first to you?
All right, here's an important question.
Hmm.
Valuable question. Relevant question. How do you wish to be referred to? As the son?
Except for Josh or Joosh, because you guys already referenced me as Joosh quite a couple of
Excellent!
times on video,
Excellent! I appreciate that. The
and
freedom.
I will reference you as Val and or Far Eviler, whichever
Okay, okay. All right. So,
came first. Game, show, movie. What what
to
what
me,
media came first to you? Yeah.
um, I think probably the cartoon, which like defeats your question about um the the TMNT being an 80s thing because the cartoon came out in the 90s.
Did it? I thought it came out in the 80s. I remember seeing it during the Garfield thing, during Garfield's time. Yeah, because the
Um,
movie came out in the 80s. Did it? Hold on, I'm questioning everything now. Hold on. Google search TMNT 80s. What came out in the 80s? Yeah, 1987, the cartoon came out. And the
all
movie
right.
came out in 1990.
I can't help it. I'm timeless.
But yeah, what came first in your opinion? So we have very little to cover then. We barely get to cover the movie because it came out in the 90s.
That's not true. I think there's a lot to cover.
Okay.
Okay, here's the thing, right? Um, when it comes to the comic books, I think we did it in reverse because I think that when it comes to um, our exposure to a lot of things around that time, we did things backwards. Like with Batman, we watched the cartoon first, and then we went back and
Yes.
read the comics. With TMNT, we watched the cartoon first, and then we went back and read the comics. So while we did read the comics, and we did get exposure to the 80s comics, we didn't get exposed to them in the 80s.
Yeah, it's true because when I watched the cartoon and then I read the comic, I remember having that reaction like they all have red bandanas. What?
Yeah, the red
Yeah,
bandanas only got adapted
only in the comic.
in the
Yeah,
in the cartoons. The red bandanas they only changed in the cartoons.
yeah,
And then that got retroactively added into the comics when they started I
yeah,
don't want to say Disneying up, but they start getting Jim Hensoning up
yeah,
the comics.
yeah,
Um, yeah, and I think that they did that Divergent thing that they did with Spider-Man in the comics, where they kind of kept to the dark and gritty version, and then they also put out issues that were like hero versions that the like the 4 kids TV versions that you can buy for your kids that aren't hella violent and bloody as shit, you know? Because parents had this idea that if they went out and bought their kids comics that are TMNT, that it would be the same as the cartoons.
It's funny. I remember there was a lot of backlash in Europe where they turned it to Hero Turtles instead of Ninja. And I remember when I heard that, I was like, what do you gotta post to ninjas? Like, what's wrong with ninjas? And then I realized, I was told after that fact that ninjas were assassins. And I was like, oh, so they're bad guys. But why are they good guys then? I remember going through that for a while.
Yeah, I mean, that's why it was so funny when you had crossovers to like the Cowboys of New Mesa, because you were like, how many versions are we gonna make where we have to add a different like genre to kind of play down the violence? So you're like, okay, so Cowboys is it now? We had to add that because it's less threatening than ninjas. All right, I guess.
Yeah.
Because Usagi Yojimbo leveled it up. Because we went from ninjas to samurais, and then they were like, "Oh no,
new Usagi Yojimbo cartoon?" I heard about that.
Why did you ask me that?
Sorry.
I'm looking at news. My phone is giving me updates about Trump's hospitalization. And you're like, Usagi Yojimbo. I'm like, I live in two worlds.
Well, I think you would prefer the Usagi Yojimbo feed as opposed to.
This is valuable insight you have into my life.
Okay, anyway, which series is more important to you out of all their media that they put out?
Which series?
Like comics?
You mean which like foray? Which foray?
Yeah, format or whatever. Yeah.
I think I'll say the cartoons, because the cartoons would find what they like best about the comics, and they would try and adapt that into a palatable version, because the cartoons were like, hey, I hear there's a TMNT crossover with Batman. Do you know what would be great is if we take that and there's like 2 or 3 versions of it, and let's make it into one special. And
that offended me a little bit, that you were telling me that there was more to that special, but we'll get to that eventually. Favorite turtle?
I don't know.
I think mine is Donatello. I love Donatello. He's smart. He does machines. He smokes cigarettes. He gets into fights with little kids.
As a not terribly, like, I don't come off as like too threatening person who has purple and green hair, I feel that I identify with no one, and I stay on the wall about this.
Anyway, hers is Donatello, people. Mine is Michelangelo.
With my mechanics.
I love Michelangelo because he's a silly idiot. I think I just offended him, but it doesn't matter.
He wouldn't take offense.
I
He
know.
would not be bothered.
I think his is it 7 minutes yet?
I've already sworn. I realized that right
his
after
dumbassery is only bessened by his love for pizza and his brothers.
You know what? I don't think he's a dumbass, because I don't think the things he does is out of being dumb. I think he's naive. You know? I think he just has a way of viewing the world that is, like, even though he's a ninja, even though he's a ninja, he doesn't see anything he's doing as mean-spirited. Like, they all do things out of being honorable. They've never, in the comics, they do things like to come down and like murderize people.
Yeah.
But like in the cartoons, they're like, in Person of Interest, where it's always knee shots. Like,
yeah.
Like, despite the fact that like, on top of that, Michelangelo and Donatello, the two that we picked, are the ones who use blunt weapons.
Yes.
So they really don't have the murderer, the killing, the most aggressive spirit.
Which rendered the turtles pretty useless, like the other ones with actual bladed weapons.
How dare you? How dare you Donatello could run anyone over in a car in the blink of an eye whenever he wanted.
Yeah, and if I remember well, they were hitting people with sewer manholes.
Yeah.
Like,
legit.
wow, that would kill someone.
Not in New York. Not in New York. We're used to that.
We're used to that.
Yeah.
Popping manholes.
I think every superhero has in every if they ever take place in New York, they are constantly throwing manholes around, or in any metropolis. In like Batman, Superman, anything that takes place in any sort of metropolitan area, they're like throwing sewers around, and we're just like, ah, man, I'm from New York. We're used to this. This is Sunday like brunch. This is the weather. Sunny with a side of manhole cover.
I think another thing that I didn't put in the list here is their weird pizza toppings.
Manhole cover?
they had such weird
Sprinkling
pizza
of
toppings.
manhole cover.
No, like they would have like anchovies
of
and
manhole
chocolate and just so gross. I think
as a New Yorker, I have seen some strange-ish on pizza toppings. I don't think anything
I can imagine.
But as we have spoken about Michelangelo for a while, I would like to take a moment to say how Donatello is the best Ninja Turtle.
Okay.
That's it.
I'm offended, hurt, even.
I just feel like, I mean, he came back from certain injuries, and he was fine with it.
I mean, what about a cigarette habit? Huh? That's bad for the other turtles?
He cured cancer.
Oh, that's why. That makes sense. Cured cancer. Okay, that makes sense. Donatello's free to do whatever he wants then.
Pretty much. He's like false.
I mean, he probably made the cure for cancer out of trash, which penicillin does come from rotten objects, so it makes sense in some weird way.
Rotten objects, yeah. He's like, here's rotten eggs, penicillin. That's exactly how.
Oh God, I had a friend, a mutual friend of ours, that I went to their house, and they had a rotted plant on their sink. I'm not gonna say who it is, but I was like, "Why is that rotten plant there?" And he was like, "I'm trying to make penicillin." And his wife gave him the only look. She like, throw that garbage out.
We have a great caliber of friends. I just need you to know and understand that.
Back on topic, the comics. I'm not familiar with much from the comics, and poignantly enough, they're showing comics on the screen right now. I don't really know much about the comics. I know they followed a lot of them in the more 2000 era cartoon. And with that said, I know they added a female turtle in the recent comics. I believe she was a yellow bandana.
There were several attempts to add a female one, and I think they made one. They had the female. One of my favorite things about trying to add a female one was what was it? Oh, Venus de Milo.
Yes.
Which was a failed one, and they added her, and then they took her out, which is great because there was like a bloggy sort of correspondence between the turtles and her, but when they wanted to retcon her, they didn't delete the correspondence, so there's like letters, I think, to Leo that went out to her so that she's still mentioned, but like,
that's so weird.
It's so weird. But gosh, let me see. I'm trying to see. There are a couple of man, I wish that I had gone over my notes before this, because I'd written my notes so much longer.
Yeah.
Although there are 4 different canons in the comics. There's like the original, that's like the origin story, which takes place in 84 to 93. Then there's the second launch, which still remains within the canon. I think that was like the second launch where they just started coloring the comics. So it was the same story, but it was a relaunch. And it didn't really do all that well, because that was 93 to 95, and we all know that's the comics bubble, like when the
Yeah.
bubble burst.
Yeah.
So as a resell, it wasn't doing super great, so it was canceled.
Hmm.
Then there was a third volume, and the story went really like jumping the shark. Like there okay, I'll give you some of the bullet points. You ready for this?
Okay.
Leo loses a hand.
What?
Raph's face becomes hella scarred.
Okay, I think I've seen that one before.
Splinter becomes a bat.
What?
Donnie becomes a cyborg.
I remember seeing that. Yeah.
And Raph becomes the new Shredder and takes over the Foot.
That seems fitting. I'm a Raph hater here, by the way.
And you can't, I mean, there's none of that here. My heart is open and free and love for all those that asshole at the crypt, like, completely corrupt, decrepit, fucking. Anyway, yeah,
Call
no, Call him. Yeah, no, I have no love for Raphael. So, yeah, by that arc was left with a cliffhanger.
Yeah.
And after that,
they rebooted it.
Mirage disavowed it. They were like, not canon. The end. Like,
wow.
so bad.
Wow.
Volume 4 picks up where Volume 2 left off.
Mm-hmm.
And what they did is they just time jump.
Oh, okay. That kind of makes sense. Like, you would, at a certain point, you've dug yourself so deep.
Yeah. And so now they're no longer really teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. They're kind of like middle-aged Ninja Turtles. They're all in their early 30s. April and Casey are married. And they have a teenage daughter who's named Shadow, which is a pretty great name.
That is a good name.
They live in the Splinter lives in the Northampton farmhouse outside of New York, although the turtles stay in the lair.
Okay.
And Splinter is helping Casey and April raise up Shadow. He's like grandfather.
That's beautiful.
He's Kurt's grandfather.
I like that.
Yeah, it's mad peaceful.
Was this all about
and
Kevin
the
Eastman
turtles? Yeah, I believe so. And
So
the turtles
cool.
are no longer living in hiding. They're like welcomed by society. So they no longer. Yeah. Yeah, and it says Peter Laird and Jim Lawson were in charge. They brought the turtles back to their roots.
Yeah.
They brought the turtles back to their roots. They were no longer the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. They were referred to as TMNT.
Was this all during the 90s era or the 80s era?
This was the early aughts. This was because the non-canon like horrible Volume 3 took place during 96 to 99. And then the better 15-year jump canon one, Volume 4, started in 2001 to 2014.
Wow, I missed a lot of comics.
Yeah.
I think comics at the time was back then was much more like, I think, mature even for kids. Like, they were like dealing with blood and stuff, and I think Ninja Turtles did dive into that a bit, well, quite a lot if I remember well. And I think they were going for a teen vibe, while I think at the time I was basically like trying my best to read comics like that without my parents knowing. Or our parents knowing,
Yeah. There was like, what they also did at the end of Volume 4 was they started giving, which I think is really super cool of them to do, is even though you had then the four brothers who were mad tight for so long, they gave a bunch of one-shots, including a one-shot for Jason.
Oh, that's really cool. Was that comics only, or?
Yeah, comics only.
Oh, that's so cool.
Yeah. Yeah, so there you go.
Well, we covered a lot. You covered the Kevin Eastman and Peter Laird question I had. Yeah, I covered the differences in comics at the time. And I guess the next one is differences in cartoons at the time that were out. And I don't think there was that many differences. They were all kind of,
Well,
except for Batman animated series, which was, oh my god, that was a masterpiece.
well, the cartoon started during the fourth volume. So
Mm.
while like right after they were like, oh man, volume three fucked up. Let's get volume four to fix it up. So that started in 2001. The cartoon debuted in 2003. So while they were fixing up the comic, the cartoon, um, the cartoon, they had a crossover movie. Um, and not the cartoon picked up, like not that the cartoon started, is that they had a crossover movie with two of the Turtles properties. So there were two of the Turtles like episodes that crossed over with an interdimensional plot. As it doesn't make, I know this is not, I'm not explaining this properly,
Mm.
but um, the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles cartoon ended in 2003. It didn't start. I'm sorry, it ended in 2003. And so they had a movie that crossed over and they connected it to the comic books. Does that make more sense?
Yeah, that makes a lot more sense.
Okay, there you go. I was explaining that backwards. So that's how they connected the comic books even more to everything else that was going on. Um, yeah, so I mean, that's I think the last note that I really had on the. That's not the last note I had on the comics. Okay, so here are other notes that I had on the
Okay.
comics. Okay, that they had a crossover with Archie comics. That they also had. I'm not going to get back into explaining. Let me see. That the um, that oh my gosh,
What happened?
I'm looking at all the crossovers that they had with Archie comics, and it's just
They
like
had a bunch. They
so
had a bunch.
convoluted. It kind of goes
I
on
know.
forever.
Speaking of which, I know they
That they
were.
had a Megadeth arc
Mm,
that had with the uh, Mutanimals. Do you remember that?
no, I don't know that.
They had two of those, where the whole point was that um, oh my god, the Mutanimals that they had shown up because they they were a group of villains like known as the Gang of Four, West, Fist, Deadeye, and Lynch. They started shooting up um, because they were trying to kill the Mutanimals,
Mm.
and it just crossed over into the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, and
Oh.
it um, and they had accidentally abducted Donatello because Donatello was doing like his sciencey stuff,
Mm.
and he just like ended up opening up a a black hole in the way that you do,
Yeah, yeah. The way that
and he
Donatello does.
yeah, because that's Mad Cash Sunday brunch stuff.
Mm.
And he ends up going over and helping them sort their stuff out. And then in the second part of that story, and in the second part of that miniseries, is in the future. Him and Raphael open up a time portal to warn the mutanimals of what's going to take place because something bad is going to take place yet again.
Mm.
Um, and it's like I wouldn't say a copy of the first story arc, but it's very similar. Um, and but that's like another jump in time. And then I think the last one is like takes place in the present day,
Mm.
and the turtles are coming home in an airplane. But Mikey gets attacked by Deadeye, and future Donnie and Raph come to the present to meet animals, but they're all dead, and Slash attacks them, and they're just like, what's going on? And after burying the Mutanimals, future Donatello, Rav, Candy, and Slash all head out to find present-day Turtles to kind of stop this from happening. It's like there's a bunch of like time jumpy stuff with the Mutanimals.
It sounds like they put in so much stuff with Mutanimals, which I would care less for.
I know, but the thing is like it was smart, but you had to be into it.
Yeah.
You know, if you didn't care about it, then it was like, oh, fine, then you don't care about this, then you know, it's the same like I didn't care about the Cowboys of Moo Mesa, but man, did they care about the Cowboys of Moo Mesa.
Oh,
I
yeah,
think the one,
did.
like I super didn't care about the Cowboys of Moo Mesa, but I cared a buttload about their crossovers with Batman, and I cared a buttload about their crossover with Usagi Yojimbo.
Yeah.
You know, those were stuff I cared about. But it put more time and effort in the Mutanimals and into the Cowboys of Moo Mesa crossovers, which was a shame because they suck. That's my opinion on that.
Another thing I think that I was gonna touch on was I forgot that they had that crossover from Daredevil way back in the beginning.
Yeah. Well, I mean, they were inspired by Daredevil.
Yeah.
So that was, I feel, their ambition to begin with. They were like, man, you know what would be a success? We would claim a success if only we got this.
Yeah. It was, I believe it was the same ooze that made him go blind, if I remember well.
Refresh my memory.
The barrels that hit the Ninja Turtles and soaked them and the mutagens that hit them was the same barrels that supposedly blinded Matt Murdock, I believe. Yeah.
I will trust your judgment on that.
Yeah, yeah.
I'm not 100% familiar. All I know is I care a lot about Batman. Probably a crazy amount. I care a lot about, like, which is funny because I just went on a whole rant about Mutanimals and it explains, like, all the crossover with that. But I could probably not really go on as much a rant about Batman. Well, aside from the fact, actually, that's not true. Okay, the whole thing about Batman, now that I've decided to go on a rant about Batman, I've seen my opening.
Let's not.
Well, I mean, the fact is, I can't remember. They ended up in Gotham City, and Batman saw them as the bad guys, and so Batman was like, I'm going to take out these ninjas. And meanwhile, the TMNT was like, I'm going to take out these Foot. And I think it was Ra's al Ghul was like, I'm going to team up with Shredder, and I'm going to get down to them naughty shit. And meanwhile, like, after a big fight, which of course, like, Leo decides to take on the Bat like a dumb... I think it's Donnie who ends up backtracking to the Batcave and figuring out Batman is Bruce Wayne. And, of course, Mikey has to, like, touch all the things in the Batcave, and Robin's like, could you not?
Yeah.
And after they realize, like, hey, we're not a threat to each other, they're like, we should team up. Which is a much better recap. Tell me that's not a much better recap.
Yeah.
Thank you. Like, when I care about a thing, I can condense. When I care about a thing, I'm a good one. Anyway, that was like the first Batman, and
well, I think we covered differences in cartoons. Did we? Did we cover different? No, the cartoons.
Not really.
Yeah,
because like as far as like even I think that was like the first Batman, and I think that was the first Batman and TMNT crossover. There were 3.
Yeah.
The second one.
Well, we got to cover the cartoons. We covered the comics quite a bit now.
No, I'm gonna finish this because I went on the Mutanimals rant and it was stupid. The second one was Donatello. He sees himself as weak because of his brothers, so he decides that he is going to use an interdimensional portal and go to Gotham City and ask Batman to like teach him up to be a badass. But he ends up boffing the game and him and Batman go on adventures together because they're awesome. Because Donatello's awesome. And in the end, Batman's like, he leaves him a little love note that tells him like he didn't, he doesn't need secret techniques to be strong because he's strong enough on his own. The whole person who they're going up against is the Krang, and the Krang sucks. And it's like Donatello who ends up taking out like
one of their more
machine
imaginative enemies.
Yeah. And the third one was, I'm trying to think, was that one the one that brought more of them together? I think it was they were up against the Krang again, and there was like Mirage versions. Because I remember there was like a Mirage version of Raphael.
Yeah.
And the Krang shows up, and he decides to merge reality between Batman's reality and TMNT reality. Okay, this one I actually liked a lot because what happened was in this universe, Batman was actually raised by Splinter.
What?
Yes, and the TMNT, they were following his murder of his parents' murderer. After escaping, let me see. So they were actually chasing after, like, the murderer of, I'm trying to remember whether it's Batman's parents or not. Like, basically, they were still on the revenge path, but the only difference is that Batman was raised to be a ninja. But they were still, like, even though the world was merged, there was, like, multiple turtles. Because there was, of course, the consciousness of turtles who were kind of going like, this universe doesn't make sense. Because Krang was meddling with the universe as they were living in the universe. And there was a version of the Laughing Man, who was the greater villain. And the Laughing Man was a combination of the Joker and Shredder. And so all five heroes together, which is Batman and the four turtles, end up boffing up the scheme between Krang and the Laughing Man and like pulling their universes apart. But by destroying the mechanism that was bonding their universes, they close any chances of the world where TMNT's New York and Batman Gotham cities can ever merge again. So in this case, they close off any chance of there ever being another Batman and TMNT crossover. So there's only 3, and there can never exist 4th. There you go. That was my thing. And in like the cartoon version, they kind of incorporated Batgirl, I believe, into the first part. You know, they decided to modernize it, and there's, I think, like less Robin and more Batgirl, which made it a lot funnier and a lot less brosome, which is great because there's a lot of bros in TMNT to begin with. And you don't need more bros with Robin because that Robin was a brat. He wasn't Dick.
Yeah.
He ain't no Dick. He ain't no Dick. Anyway. Moving on.
Cartoons.
Well, I mean, that is a segue into the cartoons because that's as far as I'm going to cover Batman and TMNT the cartoon. I'm not going to go into a rant about that because that will also be a pretty long rant.
I think at the time cartoons that were out were like Garfield and stuff and Gummy Bears.
Well,
and
as we just brought up, there was the Batman cartoon, which I think was a good lean-in to TMNT's success.
Yeah.
Because it definitely was like Batman.
And then Power Rangers. Oh God.
Okay, here's the thing. Batman was at a time where people were watching, you know, Looney Tunes and kind of spunky one-off, non-sequential cartoons. Batman was definitely the thing that showed us that we could have things that repeated and didn't have to be sequential, but also had a sequential arc. So TMNT was like, if they can succeed and they can do this, and it could be considered for kids, and even later on it was repeated on 4Kids TV, they could totally get away with it. And they had 10 seasons. 10! Which is ridiculous. You know?
Yeah.
They in the first the first 7 seasons were actually labeled as a comedy, and the last 2 seasons, and no, not the last 3 seasons, 8, 9, and 10, were
Mm.
considered dramas.
Mm.
Like that was how overreaching they were. They were like, these kids are growing up with it. They get
Yeah.
it. They get that we can do more
And
with
I
what we
think
have.
Ninja Turtles tried to have a resurgence again with another series later on in the 90s, but we'll cover that later. Um, what's next? I don't think how the movie impacted you really matters because we know we liked the movie. It was a good movie. It was.
Well, while the American cartoon was coming out,
Mm,
we did have like other things that were coming out. We had the live action television series, which was
mm.
26 episodes, which was called uh, Ninja Turtles Next Generation
Yeah, that came out in the 90s, I believe.
in 97 and 98.
Yeah.
You know, you also had um, let me see, this one was really weird. Mutant Turtles Super Legend. And there was only
What?
2 episodes of that exist. I've never seen it. This is completely Japanese.
Yeah.
Never existed. I would love to see this thing. I'm fascinated because I love these things that are like little, like, uh, uh, Mavushka dolls, the like things that like Matrosky dolls, the things that like exist inside of another thing that exists inside of another thing. The
Yeah.
little Russian nesting dolls.
Yeah.
They just, I love that idea of it. I would love to see
You know
those
what's
things.
funny? When the movie came out, it was like super, super dark. And I think other movies were following that trend at the time. I think The Crow came out like 2 or 3 years later, and I think they were going for a darker theme, and that's why in The Secret of the Ooze they went like the turtles barely used their weapons at all in that movie.
Well,
Like,
I think that has to do with the difference in production because the film that was the 90s film, the 1990 film, was an independent film. It wasn't a major motion picture. It wasn't meant to be. It was pitched to be. Like they were trying to, but nobody wanted to make that film.
yeah,
Nobody anywhere wanted to make that film. I mean, even the director was like, the director of Aha's Take on Me, which I think is brilliant. You have
yeah,
this guy who's already like, I think it's great to make cartoony things dealing with humans. And I'm like, you succeed at this, sir. Please do it again. And he was like,
yeah,
fine, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. I'll totally do that. And so he did. And it was declared that it would be unsuccessful anywhere.
yeah,
And so because there was so much low expectations. And it shouldn't have been successful.
yeah,
It shouldn't, because I mean, the comics were still a cult phenomenon, you know?
Speaking of unsuccessful, segue to the video game. God, that video game was horrible.
Let's skip all the movies and head
No, we can't
straight
do all
to
the
the
movies. We
video
can't do all the
game.
movies. We'll do that for later. We're just covering
No,
the
it's
90s
okay.
movies.
It's okay.
The horrible Nintendo game.
You can go on about the video games. I know very little about the video games.
That was the one where
I could give you name and dates, but I have no memory or impressions of any of them.
yeah, that was the one where the Ninja Turtles were each other's life. So you only had 4 lives for each turtle. And when they die, you'd have to go into like a building and save one of them. And then they had that famous underwater scene where you're hitting the ivy and it makes that noise when you touch the ivy. Oh God, that was a horrible game. And it was superseded by the Turtles in Time game, which was so much better in so many ways. And killed the arcade scene, like, really. Well, I mean, I was in the arcades at that time, and I think I was playing Street Fighter.
God, I miss arcades.
Yeah, so
Well, hi, drive by louder.
wow, obnoxious car. I hope they hit a speed bump and just fly
Hey,
off
to
the
be
ropes.
fair, that was a motorcycle. How
Oh,
dare you
okay.
judge?
Then I hope they get a
Continue.
pole in the middle of their wheel.
Man, if only Donatello was here. He's really
Exactly.
useful. He's such a useful guy to have around, when you can't, you don't have the availability of throwing sewer heads.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
yeah, like that game was horrible. Turtles in Time was better. I think they did a ripoff of Turtles in Time for the Sega Genesis. Um, After that, I'm kind of a blur for their games that came out because they started coming out with tons and tons of games that,
There are 63 games.
oh jeez, they were just shadows of Turtles in Time, and some of
I'm
them were
sorry,
better.
61. 61. I beg forgiveness.
You're forgiven.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much.
um, what else? There was the merchandise that came out besides the video games, like their cereal and their ooze drinks.
I mean, you have to think of like what an incredible success they were because at the time that they were coming out, there were such a there was like there was they brought up with them um, $1.8 billion worth of toys. Like that's how much they sold, and they were such a success that they in their wake came Street Sharks, Battletoads,
Yes,
Avenger Penguins, Toxic Crusaders, Dino Saucers, Road Rovers, Biker Mice from Mars,
I love Biker
SWAT
Mice from
Cats,
Mars.
Extreme Dinosaurs. Like all of these things were like, you know what?
We
If
like your formula.
TMNT
Can we
can do it,
borrow it?
yeah, they were like, let's make a team of brothers or like a team of mutants or a team and let's just smash them together and they're going to be sassy or they're going to be smart or they're going to be brooding or they're going to be like you know what and they may just have a quirky leader who knows and this is going to be the formula that's going to make it last and some of these lasted a year and some of these lasted 5 years but
Yeah,
none of them I mean TMNT is lasting even now I
yeah.
mean
A
we
new
have
one coming out, being done by
there's a new live
Seth
action
Rogen.
coming out. There's a new live action TV show coming out.
Oh, is there?
Yeah. And right now there is the Nickelodeon show,
Yeah, Rise of the Ninja Turtles,
Rise of
which
the
I can't
Teenage Mutant Ninja
stand.
Turtles. Everybody
I
has
mean, the
their own
animation,
like.
I won't lie, the animation is superb. Like, I love the way they flow everything.
Everybody has their right to
Yeah.
their own bad opinion.
Yes, especially you, the viewer.
No, I didn't say I like
I
the
said
show.
you, the viewer.
Oh, you, the viewer. You and viewers like you. I am not like
Can you go on for a second about how you like your mom's knocking? 1 second.
I'm not like I mean we were talking about the video games, which I'm not really an asset to. But I have to say that out of all the cartoons, aside from the 90s cartoon, which I think is my favorite, there is the which one was it? The 2012 2012 cartoon. That's probably my
Hello?
favorite. The
Oh, okay.
2012 to the 2017 cartoon, which is probably
Oh.
my favorite. And I think the thing that sold me was in the first season, that gag where Michelangelo is running across the rooftops and he says that line, I want to get a tattoo of myself
Hmm.
on myself. And
Oh, yeah, that was great.
it just takes that moment to do that animation of the 1990s version of his face, where his new face is.
Yes.
And it's such a beautiful freaking homage. It killed me. It killed me. I think like out of all the animated ones, aside from the 90s one, which I have to say that has a place in my heart. I don't know if it holds up because I haven't seen it in forever, but the 2012 2017 one might be my favorite. But it's really hard to choose. Um, I think another reason why it's so hard to choose is because they reuse voice actors. That's not true. The films reuse voice actors.
Yeah.
The films reuse voice actors a lot. The TV shows not as much, but the films were like I let me see, the films Who was
I
it?
know they
Who
had
was...
the Mighty Max character play Raphael, the guy that did voice Mighty Max.
I throw that in there. Like
Yeah.
everyone knows who Mighty Max is.
Sorry. I don't know any other reference towards Mighty
Okay,
Max.
so here's the thing. What you would do is normally you would know the motherfucking actors'
Actor, yeah,
names,
I know.
Joosh.
That's really
You would
bad.
say
It's really
that. You
bad.
would just not say a reference to a TV show that, to be fair,
That's 30
was
years old.
not was not hella popular at the time. And while it holds a golden place in our luxurious household that we call our
I know
house,
they've also used
in the
that same
cage,
voice
in our
actor
chest.
for Donatello at a certain point. Like he was jumping ship from turtle to turtle.
No, it was Corey Feldman. That was the
Oh,
thing.
was it? Oh,
I
okay.
loved Corey Feldman. That's why I always remembered. And I already loved Donatello. And then they were like, Corey Feldman plays him. And I was like, Corey Feldman from Lost Boys? Ba-dum. Just like my brain could not deal with how fantabulous this information was.
Yeah.
And then he left during the second movie. And I don't know whether he left because he was like, there is no way. Like, the first movie was a fluke. And then they were like, there's a third movie. He's like, I'm on board for that. And then the third movie wasn't that great.
That's funny.
But, like, either way, like, he is definitely the Donatello of my dreams.
What was your
Nolan North played, like, to name drop, Nolan North played Raphael in the 2017 movie.
really?
Yeah.
Makes sense. Makes sense.
Name drop.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, they had a lot of like characters kind of bouncing back and forth. Actors who were bouncing back and forth who like revisited movie. I will tell you, like, here's fun facts about like that movie. Was that the actor who played like the actors who played the parts as the Ninja Turtles, like inside of the suits, also were kind of bouncing around in the background. They were like, I'll play the pizza delivery guy. I'll play foot number 3.
That's
like they
funny.
were just bouncing around. So that's just like, I can't remember which one exactly was which, but they had such, like, even though it was such a strain, like the outfits didn't have enough air.
Yeah, I heard about that.
And there was so much like the sometimes the outfits would like fall apart. There was so much love and such an adventure about putting the film together that, you know, they were all like, I regret nothing. And then when it came out to be such a success, you know.
Well, what was your favorite merchandise from them besides the toys? Well, no, we gotta include the toys. The toys were amazing.
What's my favorite merchandise? I mean, it's hard to say because my bitty baby brain did not connect that things like video games and action figure toys could be connected in the merchandise world.
Yeah.
To me, they were just different. I mean, even though they were the same IP, to me, they were just different properties.
Yes.
I loved my Donatello doll, and I say doll because he was way too big for an action figure, but he was like 1.5 feet tall. It was made of like the fucking hardest material, but it was about the size of a teddy bear. He was not a teddy bear. And we collected 3 of them because nobody wanted Leonardo, because nobody wants Leonardo. He's the Cyclops, he's the Superman, he's the useless character of like all useless characters. They should have broken his back because, my God, he's spineless. Anyway.
Oh, that was harsh. That was not what you said, but the Donatello. That was harsh.
I was about, how dare you correct me, sir?
No.
How dare you?
No, Leo's well deserving of any hate.
Like, who do we hate more than Ross? Leonardo! Anyway, I liked that doll a lot, and I liked sleeping with it, even though that thing was uncomfortable. But I also liked my action figure because I did like the accessories that came with it. I liked the idea of having him be able to smack the other. His bow had reach, so whenever we would fight and have battle scenes, I'd smack the shit out of Ross's face. Him and his bitchy little size.
Well, we have 5 minutes to do 5 more questions. I mean, we have 10 minutes to do 5 more questions. So 2 minutes per question.
I mean, I'll say the doll because the arcade game should take number one place because I think I've played with that one the longest.
Mm.
But the doll, even though I didn't play with it the longest, it lasted the longest. It outlasted the video game.
Yeah,
It
it did.
outlasted the action figures. Like years later, after we left home and would come back and visit home, we'd be like, "Yo, mom, what's
Yeah,
that?"
yeah.
And it was just there.
I
So
remember stuffing my
definitely the
toy's
doll.
face into pizza, which was probably not sanitary, but whatever.
I mean, it really wasn't. I mean, we were like, "Can we take this doll to dinner?" No, and we
Oh,
take
yeah.
it anyway.
Yep.
Like, you know,
Yeah.
can we? Like, if we could have, we would have taken it to church. Like, we wanted to take it
Yeah.
everywhere.
I believe I've taken it to church before.
Yeah, we just like. Yeah, it was easier for the boys because you guys had the big bags. The girls had the little purses. Such
Yeah.
a bullshit world. Such a bullshit world. Okay, next question. Moving
Well,
on. I'm not gonna
I
hold
think
you up.
we covered how it charged and
You didn't
transformed.
answer. You didn't answer. I answered what was my favorite.
Oh, my favorite merchandise? I would have to agree the toys. I like the video games a lot, but they never made a definitive video game, kind of like Arkham series is to Batman, but for Ninja Turtles. I guess Turtles in Time would be the closest, but it'd have to be the toys. It would have to.
Yeah, I think so too. I think so too.
How did it change us and transform us? I think for me, I'll take the liberty of saying mine first. I feel at ease being the idiot in the room because Michelangelo never. I don't think he was ever felt bad for the things he said. I think he didn't care, and I think his brothers and sisters or family empowered him to keep being him, and that's kind of what happened with me with Michelangelo.
I think it bonded us more as siblings. I think it was harder for me being the only girl playing with the action figures in the room, because it was more often that if we were playing with action figures, that y'all wanted to hand me the April O'Neil and say play with that one, and I was like, bitch, I don't think so. I'm gonna smack your heads around with this bow staff. Like it was easier for you guys to say no. There are 4 Ninja Turtles, and if there are 4 and we want to play this thing, we're supposed to have 4 fighters. You should play one of the Ninja Turtles. So it was much less likely for you guys to, you know, hand me the She-Ra, hand me the April O'Neil. Like you were much less likely to hand me the girl character, and you were much more encouraging to kind of include me on picking one of the Ninja Turtles.
Yeah.
So I think that it was the first really inclusive action figure that we had in the house.
Yeah.
I mean, that's not to say that I didn't like I'm not saying that you guys were exclusive, because like when we play He-Man, I never really liked He-Man. I liked Snarf.
Yeah, I didn't
like
like
I was
He-Man
still
either.
I was still included in the action figures. I wasn't really shoved off on She-Ra all that much. I think Mom wanted to more. So I guess Mom was easier on me about
Which is
wanting
weird
to play
because
with the
I
guys.
remember at the time when we were playing with He-Man toys, that's when Terminator was becoming big and Predator
Oh,
and
yeah.
Aliens, and they were coming out with toys, and it was weird that they were catering that towards a younger audience when those were rated R movies and they were grotesque and violent, and a lot can be said for that as well. That the Ninja Turtles helped us find a safety net.
Oh, there was a question that you wanted to ask earlier that I think that I don't know if you still want to ask it, which is what was the movies? What did they have an impression on us?
Oh yeah, I did say that. How did the movies impact us? I don't think we even
Okay.
covered that.
So there was much more similarly where it was like, oh, the games really kind of made me bring the toys really kind of made me level up my gaming when it came to like gaming with my brothers, like
Yeah.
you know, incorporate. Like I was already like I stopped playing the characters that were damsel in distress, and I started playing the more action roles when it came to playing TMNT.
Yeah.
That was the biggest difference that Turtles had with when it came to the toys. As far as watching them in the movie theater, it honestly made me act out more in the movie theater. And that is because our aunt worked in the movie theater. And there was
Yes.
one
Oh my
day-
goodness.
This is very specific to us. There was one day where she was supposed to babysit us, and she decided the best thing to do was to just sit us in a theater and let us watch Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles on repeat.
I think she was right.
I think she was right as well. And I think it was about the third time we were watching it, and we had gotten it down pat that like it took them about 15 minutes between filming to clean the theater. And at that point, I was like, "Hey, Josh, you know what I can do? I can do cartwheels because I could actually do more gymnastic things than you guys."
Yeah, you could. Like, you were really good.
You
at
were
cartwheels.
doing like I can fake punch, and I was like, I can flip at you, and we were never caught. We were never caught.
I think for me, I did flips, and then I tried them backwards. I couldn't do them backwards, and Gabriel did them backwards. I don't know how he did that.
Yeah, but I could do cartwheels. I could do tumbles. I could jump higher. Because of learning Chinese jump rope, I was better at jumping higher than you guys.
Gabriel is my brother, and he is the Raphael of the group.
He is the Raphael. Oh my God! And personality-wise, and temperament-wise, and he genuinely loves Raphael.
He does.
Jerk. What a tool! What a tool! Both Raphael and Gabriel. But I think that's probably what we got the most out of the films was basically how to expertly goof around in movie theaters and not get caught.
Yeah. What else can I say? The music it inspired. Barring Vanilla Ice. Let's keep Vanilla Ice out of there.
Well, I learned how to use Vanilla Ice to babysit.
Did you now?
Remember I used to babysit so-and-so's grandson?
Yes, I remember.
And he couldn't sit through the whole movie, but he could sit through the credits.
Really? I did not know that. That's
so
funny. I probably did, but I blocked it out.
And he learned the dance, and he loved Ninja Turtles, and because he loved playing with our toys. And so I would put Vanilla Ice on, and it would chill that little boy out. No pun intended.
And lastly, we have very little time left. What was the best Jim Henson movie, and why was it Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles?
Because when the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles dressed up as Dark Crystal, it was a beautiful...
And at that, I'm willing to end the podcast. I have a situation.
There's no better answer.
I have a situation going on here at the house, and a friend of mine keeps texting me throughout the whole thing. So it's been really hard to.
You could have just said, and I'll end it at that because there's no better ending to leave it on. You could have said that.
That's true. I love you guys, and much respect to any Turtle fans out there.
Much love.
Here's to more Turtle stuff in the future. Take care.
Oh, yeah.
That's a good song to end it to. Anyway, take care. Bye.
Bye.